Story number 1. I suffer from sleep paralysis. Happened more often during high school and were mainly me being thrown off a cliff as somebody laughed. It got old pretty quick. But a couple years ago at my old place, I downloaded the Necrophonic app on my phone and started messing with it. I shouldn't have done that. A week later I had a dream. This dream started out sexual as a woman was riding me. But her skin quickly turned pale and started decaying rapidly. I pushed her off and the previous scene of her riding me was playing on a projection behind her as I was surrounded by darkness. She started growling lowly as she walked toward me and I stepped backward to get away from her. I could feel that anxious feeling that I was about to go full sleep paralysis mode, so I noped out of my dream. I've learned to wake myself up before that shit starts. It's a feeling of anxiety and panic that I need to stop before sleep paralysis sets in. So I basically laid in bed for 4 hours before I fell asleep again. In this dream I was in a very claustrophobic building. I opened the main door to a wide grassy field and a road at the end of it. I saw that same pale woman on the road staring at me, and that same panicky feeling came on strong. I woke myself up and I could hear the woman scream as I regained my senses. Another week passes by and I had a dream I was in an old antique shop with this round humanoid creature at the counter. The items in this place felt cursed. I looked around before the shop owner looks at me and I shit you not. Says, "Don't go out there, she's waiting for you." I could see the pale woman outside of the glass doors. As I woke myself up this time, I felt my foot get dragged down the fucking bed and my face leaving the pillow and hitting the mattress. That's the end of it though. After I moved I haven't experienced anything like it. My roomie's dogs would also randomly get scared and come into my room to be close to me on my days off and if I was the only one at the house. I haven't fucked around with that app since. Story number 2. I've suffered sleep paralysis since I was at least 4 to 5 years old. It was always after having a lucid dream and I always knew I was dreaming. And then I would wake myself up and be frozen. I never saw anything. But I'd hear noises behind me and movement in the room. With my eyes open seeing the room and I'd be petrified. I'm 22 years old now. Nearly 23 and was staying at my GFS house this morning of this post. Her and her 5-year-old sister went downstairs to make breakfast and I was knackered. So I stayed asleep. As soon as they left I was paralyzed and they said they were downstairs for 20 minutes. Before they came up and I was in the state of paralysis I was frozen looking at the door of her bedroom. Hearing someone in the room next door, her mom's room, and I was annoyed that I was experiencing it and not really scared. I was fighting to keep my eyes open until it got to about 5 minutes and I still couldn't move. I was screaming for help with all my strength and it was fairly loud. Loud enough my GF and her sister heard it and decided to mute the TV downstairs. They thought it was one of her neighbors. Unfortunately, it was me screaming for help because it had been too long that I couldn't move. It felt like an hour had gone by. But I was worried I was freaking dead because I've never experienced it for longer than 3 minutes max. I was trying to move my body with all my strength and when that didn't work, I decided to try shout. When I tell you I've never tried so hard to do anything in my life but me shouting and moving. I've always tried to talk. But if you experience sleep paralysis you know how hard it is to do anything. I must have passed out and I woke up with joy that I wasn't bloody dead lol. My GF and her sister came up maybe 2 minutes after I woke up and I told them I was trying to call for help, but I think I was dreaming. To my shock, they tell me they could hear me and thought it was a neighbor. It actually gave me chills. Story number 3. About 5 or 6 years ago I used to fear sleeping because I would always get visited by what seemed to be a lady of the demon type who would walk into my room. Either stand there for a little while staring at me with a sick sinister smirk and rows of sharp teeth with no visible eyes or apply some other trickery to psyche me out. Just dark holes of an empty void where the eyes should be. She would stand there while I could see everything in the room. Just how my room was set up. And even if it was pitch black dark when I fell asleep I could see the room. She would either slowly enter my room after seemingly just appearing there or appear in any corner or the closet. It was like a scene from a movie where it fades in, and then it's just the empty room, and then she would appear. It's like the mind knows exactly what to do to scare you. So I'd start screaming help. Help, over and over again, but my brother told me it would sound muffled, like with no L on it. No matter what, this nightmare would happen and I would have to ride it out. Most of the time she would enter and then quickly dash onto the top of my chest, grabbing me by the throat while making me look into what should be her eyes. That sick smirk I could never forget. Slowly bowing her head down closer to my face while never changing expression. Sometimes she would crawl on top of the ceiling while her head was twisted backwards and sit there for some seconds that feel like an eternity. Then jump onto my chest, and always the same outcome. I also remember a time when I actually woke up out of it before it could happen, but this was only one time I ever managed to escape that hell out of the dozens of times I've experienced this. About 4 years ago, I was over at my friend's house and sleeping on the couch. Then what looked like him walked by past me towards the kitchen, but I noticed something was off by the way he was walking. I instantly knew this was another one of those scenarios. Its head spun around as it was walking away. Then its legs and torso spun with it right after, and it started walking towards me quickly with its hands up and claws protruding from its fingers. I rose up out my sleep and screamed. I would not wish this on my worst enemy. It's something that people can't even understand if they haven't witnessed it for themselves. I could tell more, but they all basically always go the same way.